Good morning, good afternoon. My name is Michael Jones, Senior International Partnerships Manager at WRAP. Welcome to this special webinar, providing an advanced preview of two resources: a food loss and waste water footprint calculation tool for organisations in the UAE, and a supporting guidance document. It is an honour to moderate this session, the second in 2 months in the Arab region. On the 22nd of February, the Friends of 12.3 Arab Charter was launched, supporting the global ambition of halving food loss and waste by 2030. Thriving Solutions are the secretariat, of which today's session is connected. In terms of today, food loss and waste is a global major challenge, and water is a shared resource that supports our communities and ecosystems, and it is vital to our food and drink system. We must protect and manage it. This is acknowledged in today's agenda, where we have 4 presentations covering an introduction to the UAE water footprint tool, training of the UAE water footprint tool, introduction to associated guidance, and a local case study of food waste reduction best practice. There'll be opportunities for questions, there'll be an interactive poll, and close. All content will be in English today. The session will be recorded. The chat function is enabled, allowing the opportunity to ask questions. Please label if you do have a question, and we can get to that in the associated slot. Recording and presentations will be shared after the session today, and the resources referenced today have been supported by FCDO, the Foreign Commonwealth and Development Office. So we're now going to get into the presentations, and I'm going to introduce the first of our fantastic speakers today. So on first, we have Seta Tutundjian, founder and CEO of Thriving Solutions. Seta is a global thinker and advocate for transitioning to circular food systems and regenerative economy in water-scarce regions. For the past 25 plus years, she has led the formulation and execution of acclaimed transformational programs that have engaged stakeholders and mobilized community action. These programs introduce novel approaches to build a demand management culture in the water, agriculture, and energy sectors. So Seta, if it's okay, I can pass over to you to introduce the tool.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Michael.
So I just stopped my sharing my screen.
Yeah. Good morning, good afternoon, everyone, wherever you're joining us from. It's really a pleasure to be here to talk about this tool and introduce it. And with that, I start my video. Okay. So, can you see my screen?
Not just yet. Oh, something's happening now.
Yeah. Okay.
Perfect.
Okay.
Floor is yours.
Perfect. So the tool we're presenting today, or we're launching today, is a tool for calculating the water footprint of food loss and waste in the UAE, but not only food loss and waste, as you see, but also food in general. Okay, so next. So the products that have been developed under this initiative, we have an Excel-based tool that users can use to calculate the water footprint of locally produced food, of imported food, of wasted or lost food, and of redistributed food. So the tool can enable users to calculate the water footprint of all of these categories of food. With the tool, there is a guidance document with step-by-step instructions on how to use the tool. This document is being currently finalized, the layout, and it would be on our site within the next week. And then we have accompanied with that an instruction, short video on how to use the tool by participants. I'm not going to dwell into the tool because we will be showing the video later on today during the webinar to guide you on how to use the tool. So why is measuring the water footprint really important? So especially for food loss and waste. First, water is a necessity to produce food. And it's actually 70% of fresh water use globally is used to produce our food. So food, we can say, is basically water or virtual water. So when we waste food, we're wasting water essentially, along with all of the other natural resources that went into the production of that food. Now, the geography of production, where we produce our food, impacts the water footprint. If it's an arable land with very good precipitation, the green water, which is the water that is stored in the soil, so irrigated agriculture is higher than, rain-fed agriculture is higher than the use of blue water. If we're growing the food in water-scarce regions, the blue water footprint is higher. So it is very important for us in the tool also to recognize where the food is coming from, to be able also to make sure that the calculation of the water footprint, being blue water, be it green water, is accurate. And the tool covers both blue water and green water, as you'll see in the video later on. Now, in our region in general, in the MENA region, we are one of the most arid regions. Arable land is a mere 4.5%. If we focus in on the UAE, mean precipitation is very low. The country is predominantly arid, and this is expected to increase even with climate change. The whole region is expected to increase in aridity and reduce precipitation on an average. If we look at the water resources, this region is identified as the most water scarce region in the world. All countries fall, with the exception of Iraq, fall under the, actually all countries, even Iraq, fall under the 1,000 water scarcity benchmark. And then most countries fall under the absolute water scarcity benchmark of 500 cubic meters per year. If we zone in on the UAE, renewable freshwater resources in the UAE were 16 cubic meters per person per annum in 2017, and this is much lower than even the not only the global standard, but also the mean standard of the MENA region or the Middle East region and North Africa, and it is considered one of the most water scarce countries in the world. So this scarcity of water resources and scarcity of arable land has necessitated that the region relies heavily on imports of food that are brought in from other countries. In 2018, the value of that food was in the range of 32 trillion. If we're looking at the United Arab Emirates alone, it's actually the highest importer in terms of value. But then when we switch to food loss and waste, the region also has one of the highest food loss and waste ratios worldwide. So 44% of the food that is served in MENA is lost or wasted, and 34% of that is constituted waste. And during holidays such as the upcoming Ramadan, it is noticeable that food waste increases and can even exceed 50% of served food. So if we're talking about tonnage of waste, that equates to more than 60 million tons of waste, of which households is the largest producer. Now, the UAE is food loss and waste. Now, the data for the UAE are estimates. We do not have high confidence data for food loss and waste in the UAE, but the estimates indicate that the country's food loss and waste is higher, or food waste here is higher than world average. For loss, we still do not have any numbers. So what does the tool enable users to do? So the tool will enable users to quantify and to compare the uses of freshwater resources and the environmental effects of different products, food products, from where they're imported. Are they locally produced? Are they imported? From which region are they imported? How much of that is being wasted or lost? How much is being redistributed? And develop different scenarios. So we can develop the status quo, but we can also use the tool to develop different hypothetical scenarios to allow us to compare, especially if we want to look at developing policy briefs and identifying future directions. It helps identify hotspots and trade-offs related to water, and it also helps us to understand and connect food loss and waste reductions with efforts to reduce water use, because most countries in the region, they have water strategies that are very ambitious and are looking at improving efficiency, and this is one way of improving efficiencies. Other things users can do, they can align the strategies with global and national goals for mitigating climate change and ensuring water security. They can set targets and indicators for improvement, especially on how do you link food loss and waste reduction targets to science-based water use reduction targets, because the tool, as you see in the video, is based, all of the calculations in the tool are based on science-based evidence and developed ratios. And then calculate and communicate the environmental benefits of food loss and waste reductions and connect it to the environmental performance, particularly related to water. So the benefits of this is, first of all, measuring the water footprint is part of any environmental impact assessment for the agri-food system. And as countries in the region now, specifically after COVID and the conflict in Ukraine and Russia, are focused more on increasing local production. And given the scarcity of water resources, it is very important to develop scenarios to really understand the environmental impact assessment of different growing locally different crops versus importing them, and so on. So governments and policymakers can calculate, for instance, the water footprint of locally produced food and the water footprint of imported food separately, and then the water footprint of food wasted, and how does that align to their plans for reducing food loss and waste? How does that impact the water strategy of that country? In terms of companies across the supply chain can calculate the water footprint of the food they used, they purchased, the food they wasted, the food they redistributed if they have such initiatives. So this would allow them to track these initiatives, but also to report them. Most companies now are doing ESG reporting, and this falls very nicely within reports. They can generate reports that are really built on evidence. And users such as academics, consultants can use this tool to calculate the water footprint of various scenarios, and then based on that generate policies or support with strategy development. So what data do we require to run the module optimally? So if we want to run the module at a country or city level, we need to have an itemized list of all locally produced food per commodity during a certain year that we want to do the analysis for, and we have to have that in kilograms or tons. Then we have to have also an itemized list of all imported food per commodity and the source of the commodity during a year in kilograms or tons. Now, the module does allow for us to have others as a source, but it's always better if we know really where that food is coming from, because that gives us a better estimation of green water versus blue water. We need to also understand the volumes of redistributed food within the country during a year in kilograms or tons. If the country doesn't have accurate measures for that, an estimation can be looked at. and then volumes of food waste within a country during a year in kilograms, tons, or the percentage figure by which we can derive what is the tonnage. Now, if we want to run it at an entity level, like a company wants to do it, then they need an itemized list of all purchased food per commodity and the source of that commodity, if that source is known in kilograms and tons, the volume of food that company redistributed and gave away, as well as the volume of food that was thrown in the bin and that was collected to go to the landfill. So once we have this data, it is very easy to enter this data into the module and then generate the results that you're looking for. This is one of the resources that we're proudly launching under the Arab Friends of Champions 12.3 that is looking and seeking to develop more resources for the Arab region, for the MENA region, to enable reduction of food loss and waste and moving more to a circular food economy and contributing to SDG 12, sustainable consumption, and particularly SDG 3, which is reduction of food loss and waste. There is a QR code on the screen. If you want to join, there is a WhatsApp group that we are trying to bring all community members in the region and professionals that are working on food loss and waste to be part of the Arab Champions 12.3 and to connect them together for future collaboration. So please, if you're interested, scan the QR code and join the group. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Seta, for that introduction to the tool. And please do look at the link for the Arab Friends of Champions 12.3. Thank you for that. We will have questions later on in the session. Please get those ready using the chat function. And we will come back to those later on. So Seta has mentioned that we have a video to support the introduction of the tool, and we'll come on to that now. So this will be a walkthrough the tool which is being developed. I'll just share my screen just as a bit of an introduction. So as a bit of an introduction, this next session is a pre-recorded video, which we're going to share. It is by Dr. Christian Reynolds, Reader in Food Policy at City University of London. City University of London have been a collaborator of the tool and have shared their technical expertise within the design. In regard to Christian is a reader in food policy at the Centre for Food Policy, City University of London. He's also the senior tutor for research at the Centre for Food Policy, recognised as a global expert on food loss and waste and sustainable diets. So I will stop sharing my screen and we can go to the video.
Hello, my name is Dr. Christian Reynolds from the Centre for Food Policy at City University of London. Today I'll be presenting to you the water footprint tool that we've developed. I want to thank my authors and the wider collaborators with Thriving Solutions and WRAP for the opportunity to have worked on this project. So today we'll be presenting a tool which provides a method for measuring the water footprint for food purchased by UAE businesses or actors in the food system. We've created a methodology in this Excel tool of calculating the water footprint both for food purchased and for food wasted, including to different destinations of food waste. So firstly, I want to highlight what a water footprint is. So a water footprint is used to compare the use of different water resources. This includes water that's used or embodied in the production of food products, etc. in this specific case. There are different metrics involved in water footprinting, or you can water footprint using different metrics. Two of the more recognized metrics are blue water, which is the embodied amount of water used in irrigation, as well as green water, which is the rainwater directly used and evaporated in non-irrigated agriculture, pastures, and forests. So this means for blue water, it would be the water footprint of irrigated water, and green water, the water footprint of non-irrigated and the amount of rainfall embodied in a product. We do not in this tool use grey water, which is the fresh water needed for pollutions and assimilation. So that's not in this tool, but we do calculate and show you the results in terms of blue water and green water. The tool we've produced is an Excel spreadsheet that provides, allows you to classify foods that you purchase or waste from and gives you the water footprint for those different foods. The two pieces of additional data that you need to enter is that for each food you put into the spreadsheet, you need to say which region it was from. So was it produced in the UAE, or was it produced from one of 9 other regions around the world, such as Africa, rest of Africa, West Africa, Europe, North America, Latin America, etc. So you need to say which region this food was produced in, because that influences the water footprint. You also have to select one of 27 different food groups that this food might belong to, because that also affects the water footprint. So you classify each item as where it was produced and what food group it belongs to. The underlying data that we have in our water footprint tool is from the Food, Agriculture and Biomass Input-Output model, which is called FABIO. FABIO in our model has 130 agricultural products from 191 countries. However, we've simplified that data down to these 10 regions and 27 food group categories to make this a more user-friendly tool for people throughout the food system rather than being an expert user. Just to highlight, the water footprint data that we use comes from McCon and Hoekstra from 2011 and is the average blue and green water intensities for these different crops that are produced between 1996 and 2005. This data is going to be updated in the next few years, but this is still the best data that we have available for global estimates of blue and green water. We are reporting the water footprints in litres of water for blue or green intensities per kilograms of food purchased or wasted. So I'm next going to start flipping between my slide deck and the water and the tool itself. So firstly, the first tab of the Excel spreadsheet is a summary sheet. So for now, we've populated the summary sheet and the rest of the footprint tool with some some proxy data just to let you see how it works, that somebody could come in and use this tool. So the first sheet is a summary sheet that shows you the amount of food you've purchased in total and the total embodied green and water footprints, blue water footprints of that. Likewise, there is the total amount of food that you've wasted in terms of kilograms, as well as the total embodied green water and blue water footprints of that food that's wasted and the food that's redistributed underneath here. So I'm just going to change to the water footprint tool to show you this in the tool. Brilliant. So here I am in the tool, and you can see on the summary sheet, we have those exact things. So we have food purchased, food wasted, and then under food waste, we also have redistributed. So all of this happens through data you input into the tool. The next thing I want to show you is where the data entry actually starts. So the first tab we go to is the food purchase tab, and this has two sections, a summary section from row 7 to row 33, and then from row 38 onwards is the data entry section. And so this has in the green where you enter the name of the food that you have purchased. So you are entering that name. And then on row C, there are the different food categories, followed by row E being the origin of purchased item. So you're assigning which of these food categories and where this food was from. Then in columns G to R, which is in the blue on this sheet, it is the monthly purchases. So you record each month over the year what you purchase of that item. You can always add more rows underneath, and the column S provides a total weight of all of your purchases of that item. All of the data from these rows from 38 onwards is summarized in rows 7 to 33 at this 27 food category level to show you how many purchases you make. This means that you can have, say, sirloin steak, followed by also beef burger, and those both would be classified as a beef product from those 27 categories and be grouped in the summary sheet. So let me go to that now on the share. So again, we have the summary sheets, and then underneath we have the item name, which you input, followed by a food category. So I've selected beef for the first one, and this beef was from beef that was brought up in the UAE. This was reared in the UAE, and then we have different amounts purchased each month. Likewise, you can change the food category through a drop-down menu. You can also change the origin of the purchase item. The next tab after that is the, and so again, just highlighting there are the drop-down purchase, drop-down tabs for both of these different options. The next tab we have is the green water footprint and blue water footprint purchase tab. So these are the next two tabs along. So it takes the summary sheet and it then converts these into water footprints across the months and in total. So I'll now just go to the sheet to show that to you. So the next tab along is the food purchase water footprint. So we have the 27 different food varieties, food categories, and per month you can see the amount of green water footprint here summed to the end. So you can see here that beef, for instance, has this total water footprint, or alcoholic beverages has this total green water footprint. You can also see the total amount used for January, February, March down here. So you can see two different ways of displaying either your water footprint per month or water footprint per category. These are then summed and shown here on your summary sheet as your total green water footprint. Likewise for blue, we have the same layout. So you have the blue water footprints here with total for year, total per year for year per product type, or total per month for everything combined, with either the total amount shown in this cell or shown in the blue water there. So all's pretty straightforward so far. So this is food purchase. You add this into the summary sheet down here. This summarizes it here and then applies water footprint factors based on the origins of the country, so where it was all produced. The next thing I want to show you is the food waste sheets. So the food waste sheets operate in a very similar way. So rows 7 to rows 35 now are the food that is wasted. So we are highlighting that this means that you actually can either record that food was wasted as a specific item, or if food was wasted as a new category, which could be that it was redistributed and it was also possibly mixed waste. So you can see from row 38 onwards, we now have a new yellow tab over here, which is saying the destination the food was sent to. You can also see here that we've got a category called mixed waste in the yellow. So this means that if it's plate waste or things like that, that you can't easily record as a specific food category, you can call it mixed waste and it will have a water footprint assigned to it. So again, it might be mixed waste and you know most of the things in there were from North Africa or from the UAE. If in doubt, put the UAE down. But again, we've got these different drop-down tabs that you need to assign. So let me show you that now. So we're now on the food waste input sheet. You can see here up the top, we have the summary of amount wasted for each of the different categories. So down here we have, remember that sirloin steak from the purchase? Well, we classified it again. So we added the same item again. We called it beef. We said it was from the UAE, similar to the food purchase sheet. But we also remembered that we will be able to redistribute some of this beef before it went off. And we were able to redistribute in January 10 kilos, 20 in February, 30 in March, and 100 kilos in April. So this means that this was all then summarized up into this sheet here. Likewise, however, you can see we've put mixed waste down here, and we can have mixed waste from the food items wasted. It's the last one on the tab. But you can also see this mixed waste went to different items, and we've selected here composting and aerobic processes. So these different destinations are selected and have been harmonized with the food loss and waste protocol. So you just add where the waste was sent to the destination, along with how much waste was sent to that destination in kilograms. So now let me go back to the slide deck for the final couple of slides. So again, the last couple of bits, couple of tabs are for either green or blue water footprints from this food waste and destination mixes. So we'll just highlight those on this last tab. So in the spreadsheet, for instance, we can go to the last two tabs here for food waste. So this went from the food waste input sheet where we added in our food waste. That was summarized in this top sheet, top part of the sheet, and then it gets food blue footprint or green footprint, water footprint multipliers applied to it. And so you can see here per food item per month. This end is the total amount of water footprint created from that waste in year one. Well, down here you have the water footprint of your total food wastage or redistribution along the bottom per month. You can see here we've highlighted the redistributed waste and the specific footprint of that waste there. And this could be for green or for blue water footprints. Again, all of this is aggregated and shown on the summary sheet at the front. So really the only two places you need to add data in are you've got to put in your name, choose the category and choose the origin for food purchased and then record per month. Likewise, for food waste, you need to choose the name, choose which food item of the 27 it links to, choose the origin of that wasted item, and then choose the destination where it was sent to. You then need to add the food waste in kilograms or the redistributed food in kilograms and record each month that. That will be summarized and provided on the front sheet, or if you need more detail, the other blue or green water footprint sheets. We've tried to make this as easy to use as possible for a variety of food system actors. So that concludes the different functionality of the water footprint tool. Hopefully this has been informative and useful, and you'll be excited to get to grips and use the tool to start measuring the water footprint of food purchased and food wasted in the UAE. Thank you very much.
So thank you so much for that. I'm now going to move on to the next presentation, and you'll be glad to know this is in person. And I'm going to introduce Dr. Rachel Devine, who's going to introduce the associated guidance for the tool. Rachel is a senior analyst at WRAP with expertise in food waste measurement, reduction, and prevention in supply chains and households in the UK and internationally. So Rachel, handing over to you, and please share your slides.
Okay.
We can see your slides.
Yeah, can you see? Perfect. Yeah. Okay, so hi everybody. Again, apologies for the previous faux pas, but I'm here today to present, give you an overview of the accompanying guidance document that we'll be publishing alongside the Excel-based tool. So the guidance document itself, it provides the background and context, the food loss and waste challenge and sustainable management of water, and crucially, it explains what a water footprint is. It gives an overview of the tool itself. So as well as having the accompanying pre-recorded video, which unfortunately didn't work, but we'll share with you afterwards. The guidance document itself has an overview of the Excel tool, a description of the tool. They also outlined who can use it. So whether that's a country, a city, or an individual company. It goes through what data you'll need beforehand to be able to use it, and step-by-step guidance for each of the sheets. It also has a section on communicating the benefits for governments. That's split out into two sections. So one, the benefits for governments, and one, the benefits for businesses and other stakeholders. And then all of the data sources and assumptions are also included in that guidance document as well. And I really also want to outline what our next steps for this are. So what we're really looking for are early adopters to show leadership really in measuring the water footprint of food in the UAE. And really what we want to establish is we want organisations, governments, entities to share learnings. We want to build a network of collaboration, and we really want you to work with us to develop case studies on using this tool and the impact of using this tool, what that might mean for you and your business now and into the future. Seta just raised earlier, so can this tool be used outside of the UAE? So some of you on the call may be in countries outside of the UAE, in the Arab region. So currently the tool is applicable just to the UAE, but we have developed it from the start in mind that this tool should be able to be adapted for use in other countries in the Arab region. So all of the underlying data and the way that it's being constructed will allow us to be able to do this in the future, but that will require some further funding to be able to do that. So as we've mentioned, so the tool and the guidance document will be published on the RAP website in the coming weeks, and both the tool and the documents will be freely available to download and use. And if you are interested in using the tool, then please contact my collaborator, Seta Tutundjian, who you've just heard from at Thriving Solutions. And hopefully over the coming months, and certainly over the coming year or so, we'd really, really love to work with you. And hopefully you can work with us, demonstrate that leadership and provide learnings and best practices for other organisations to join us on this journey. That concludes my section. So I believe now we're going to have a short poll, and then we'll move on to open up the floor for some questions.
Thank you so much, Rachel. And indeed, that's the next stage of the session today. Just hearing and listening into the last three presentations, I've just taken a few notes of some key points to reiterate. So the first one being wasting food equals wasting water, which is a really strong statement. Water is used it's not only embedded within the food we consume, but it's used right throughout the supply chain and process. We also heard about the growing challenge of water scarcity, particularly in the Arab region, and this is on top of the food loss and waste challenge that we face. We've also heard about the tool. It's evidence-based, and the evidence enables the real insight. That's where insight drives action, enabling the reporting and strategic development for the user, which is fantastic to see and have that mechanism. But also, the final point, early adopters are required. the opportunity to engage with this tool, and the guidance is absolutely welcome. So there was just a few points from me. If we can now just switch to the poll, we've just got a few questions to make it interactive before we get to the questions. So you can just literally click on the responses here. So the first question is, are companies in your country calculating the water footprint of food? Yes, no, or I don't know. If you can just hover over and click on one of those, we should get an immediate response. Okay, Sam, has that come through? Have we had some respond? Okay, interesting. So are companies in your country calculating the water footprint of food? We've had 0 yeses and half have said no or don't know. So obviously demonstrating there is scope for this tool and for this to be a focus. Okay, on to the next question. Are you interested in calculating the water footprint of food? Yes, no, or indifferent are the responses. And again, I'll just give that a minute just for a response. Okay, Sam, can we see the results? Fantastic to see. 100% yes, there is interest in calculating the water footprint of food. Great to hear, and we hope this tool and guidance will really support that. Okay, one final question. The water tool presented here is for organisations in the UAE. Would you be interested in a similar tool for use in other Arab countries? So I believe this one gives you the opportunity to state which countries that would be of interest. I'll just give this a little bit more time, as I appreciate you have to type in for this one. Okay, Sam, are we seeing any responses through? Okay, I'm just trying to determine how I understand that. So the various prompts, I can't see any kind of written text there. We'll come back to that. We'll share the insight from that poll in due course. Okay, well, thank you for the interaction. And now we've got an opportunity for Q&As. I've just been having a look at the chat, and please keep the questions coming through for any of the presentations today. I've seen there has been a question around what makes the numbers within the tool UAE specific, and what are the underlying differences that have been considered? Welcome, Seta.
I can, yeah.
Yep.
So first of all, when we divided the regions, because it's for the UAE to allow for the calculation of the water footprint of local consumption, we had a category where the food is coming from, the user can identify UAE, which is anything for local production. Now, the water footprint differs from country to country. As I mentioned at the start of my presentation, the aridity of the country, the precipitation, all of these things affect the blue water footprint and the green water footprint and the evapotranspiration of the crop itself. So the tool currently allows only for the calculation of the local production for the UAE, because that's the separate category that exists there. When we adapt it to another country, or if we want to have a regional one, we will have the countries of that region or that additional country as a separate category to allow users to identify locally produced food and separate it from imported food. Now, the other difference is we use the data. I saw a question that how did the figures from the paper differed and the figures of the tool. So the paper itself, which is the Fabiot paper that we used basically, it has the 133 food categories from each countries in the region, in the world. So what we did is when we aggregated regions, basically we took averages for the countries of that region. So it's not that we changed the figures, but for that region we calculated an average. Now the water footprint doesn't differ so much in those countries where the food is produced, but the database has the water footprint based on where the destination is. And my assumption is that this was done because different countries import different qualities of food. So maybe they would be importing, for instance, apples, but the quality of the apple might be different. Some countries might be importing only rain-fed apples or not apples of a certain quality. Other countries might be importing different kinds. So this is where a variation can occur. Now, the variation might not be huge, but still there is a variation. It would be recommended to develop a tool and an average for each country separate. There was also a question about using the tool and if there is a cost associated to it. So this is a publicly available tool. It was developed with public funds by FCDO. It is going to be there as a public tool. So if anyone is going to be using the tool for financial purposes or financial gains, then that might involve some infringement to the common license of the tool, but this tool is basically an open access tool that allows users to use it for the functions that they're doing and they're calculating the water footprint. And for those that use the water footprint to do a study, we would encourage, we would love to see it and see what's the publication, and we might even participate in it.
Thank you so much, Seta. I've just seen some other questions within the chat. So there's a question around how was the tool developed in terms of who were the actors that contributed. So FCDO kindly funded the project, the resources, and in terms of the delivery, that was very much a partnership between Thriving Solutions and RAP, with the technical support from City University of London as well. So that's the collaboration that has enabled the tool and the associated resources to be developed. There's also a follow-on question here. If an interested party wants to make use of the tool, are there conditions? And will the user be encouraged to publish the data or fill out those sheets? So are there any conditions if a business or stakeholder wants to use it? Are there any conditions of using the tool? Seta, Rachel, I don't know whether you wanted to kind of come in on that one.
Yeah, there's no conditions. As long as you have the weight of food that you purchase or import, the weight of food that you waste, and if you do have the weight of food that you redistribute, then that's great, and you can use that information. But if you don't have it, then it's not a necessity to have the weight of redistributed food. You can estimate that as well. So you don't also necessarily have to have direct measurement of food, although that's of food and food waste, although that's encouraged and best practice. If you can estimate the weight, then that's also acceptable. So it's just down to your data availability, but yeah, if you also need to obviously know what the food is. You can assign the category yourself, and ideally you would know where that food has come from. As Seta said, there is a distinct option for UAE for locally produced food, but there are 9 regions that you can select from in the tool. And these are North Africa, the rest of Africa, West Asia, the rest of Asia, Europe, North America, Latin America, Oceania, and a general catch-all category for rest of the world. So you don't necessarily have to know the specific city or country where the food has come from. If you know the broad region, that's also acceptable. So yeah, there's no, it's like, it's going to be publicly available. You can access the information. There's no requirements, but we'd obviously love to hear from you and love to hear what you find and work with us to potentially publish a case study in the future.
Thank you, Rachel. There's also a question about, is the tool affiliated to any government framework or accredited by any UAE government?
So we have open discussions with Emirates Foundation, NERMA, and the ministry. So we're hoping that in the future, we are looking for the opportunity to present it to them and see how the government would love to use it. But we just published the tool, but they are aware of the work that we're doing.
Yeah. Okay, fantastic, thank you. And there's also a kind of question, comment here about food loss and waste data. The Global Food Loss and Waste Index all use estimated data. How can food loss and waste be measured? Are there electronic systems through which the amounts of food loss and waste are recorded? And I guess this is the piece about the continuous drive and need for improvement of food loss and waste data across the world. It's for RAP, I know it's an ongoing challenge and something which we're really passionate about as well. So yeah, I don't know whether you, again, Rachel or Seta, you wanted to comment on that before we move on. But yes, we use what's best available at a point in time, and always striving for that next piece of data, whether it's through the supply chain or wherever. I think, again, welcome any final thoughts on that before we move on.
So like most countries, yes, measurements are based on estimates. And that's the best that we currently have at the country level based on the estimates, to estimate what's the food loss and waste. Estimates are divided by basically loss by itself, and then we have the retail, hospitality, and households. But more and more countries are currently doing baseline assessments and measurements, particularly that the latest Food Waste Index report has basically requested countries to actually measure their food. It is a lengthy and expensive process. Now, at the entity level, measuring food waste and redistributed food becomes an initiative of the institution, and it's much cheaper and doable to do it. And I think this is a good leeway into the next presentation, which is by David, who will be presenting an AI-enabled electronic tool that measures food waste within hospitality.
You read my mind, Seta.
Yeah.
I was thinking that was a great opportunity to bring in David into the conversation and the next presentation.
I will just answer the question that was raised by Zain, which is, yes, we did test the tool. Like, the tool has been developed for the past 2 months. We have entered dummy information into it and ensured that each cell is calculating properly and accurately according to the data it should be used and the formulas that need to be used. Once you use the tool, you'll find that there are some sheets that are open for users to use, but in the background engine, are a lot of Probably they would be hidden sheets with all of the formulas that drive this tool.
Fantastic. And just to say that that third question of the poll, it didn't work as expected. If there are countries outside of the UAE within the Arab region that are potentially interested in the tool and guidance, please drop those countries within the chat. Okay, final presentation from David Jackson, Director of Marketing and Public Affairs at Winnow. Winnow develops artificial intelligence tools to help chefs run more profitable, sustainable kitchens by cutting food waste in half. Trusted by thousands of chefs in 77 countries around the world. Winnow is helping businesses such as IKEA, Compass Group, and Hilton save 75 million meals a year from their trash. David is a marketing professional of over 20 years, working with brands like The Guardian, American Express, and NGOs such as Shelter and WaterAid. David, over to you for a local case study of best practice when it comes to food loss and waste reduction.
Thank you, Michael, and thank you everyone for the opportunity to share our story today. So I was asked to give a kind of practical case study from the region, which is what I'm going to do. I'm mindful of the very smart audience and kind of academic tilt and NGO tilt that we have on the call today. So what I propose to do, I'm just going to give a little bit of an overview of Winnow and our technology for those not familiar. I'm going to talk about the genesis of this approach, where we think about using technology and behavioral science to start to make a material impact on the reduction of food waste, and kind of building on a lot of the themes that that we've kind of touched on the water side today. We're really interested to embed this into our technology and start giving equivalence, not just in terms of kind of equivalent greenhouse gas emissions, but also from a water perspective that could be really powerful as we think about changing behaviours. But really what I want to share today is some of the work that we've been doing in the UAE and the region, thinking about how we make an impact on post-consumer waste or plate waste, and specifically around the holy month of Ramadan. So some really interesting work that we've been doing with Hilton and the United Nations Environment Programme. So as we kick off, just a little bit about our company. So we're a global company headquartered in London, but we've been in the region since 2017. Bases in Dubai. We have over 150 sites across the region, saving over 1.5 million meals since 2022. From a commercial perspective, we'd expect to cut food purchasing costs by at least 1%, but in many cases, when you think about the large buffets and F&B operations that we have on the hospitality side in the region, we would often see food cost savings up to kind of 5, 6, 7, or 8%, and delivering a good return for our customers, which you can see at the bottom here. A couple of data points, and just in terms of where food waste occurs, it's helpful to split food service operations into prepared in advance and cooked to order. So prepared in advance might be a brunch at one of the kind of large hotels in Dubai, for example. There you may have hundreds or thousands of people coming for that service. The team need to prepare a large amount of the offer in advance. And there we're going to see most of the food wasted just because the team make too much. So effectively, we're asking our culinary teams to make complex forecasting decisions in stressful environments. Things are literally on fire with imperfect information. So we have a data gap, which is what Winnow tries to bridge. In an a la carte scenario, you're going to see more food waste coming back off customers' plates where they don't serve themselves. And again, we aim to help cover that with our technology. We offer a range of different solutions. We're probably best known for our AI solution. So we've trained a computer vision model, the same type of technology that you'd find in a driverless car, for example, to recognize over 600 different food items as they're thrown away in the kitchen. What we're trying to do is make it as easy as possible for teams to measure the food that's being wasted and to give them granular, accurate data that's complemented by a digital scale. So we're really trying to automate as much of the data collection process as possible using different forms of technology. Our systems are then connected to the cloud. We aggregate transactions in the crowd. We provide reporting to teams which pinpoint exactly where food waste occurs. And with that data, they can typically cut food waste in half within about 12 to 24 months. What I want to talk to you all about today, though, is the work that we've been doing on the post-consumer side. So our solution, Vision PW, uses a camera, uses a digital scale, but what we're doing is we're measuring the food that's being scraped off plates in the back of house or in the front of house, and trying to understand what guests, customers don't like, or what they're overplating themselves with, and then trying to kind of create strategies and techniques that help to reduce that overconsumption. So our story starts in Macau, on the other side of the world, and we worked with LSE, London School of Economics, behavioral science faculty. We launched a three-way study with a casino business called Melco. Each one of these three casinos, amazing buildings as you can see here, but each one of these casinos has a staff canteen, and the people being served, the employees, are a fairly homogenous group. So LSE's behavioral science faculty were really interested in this because we could start to test out different interventions and try and understand what types of behavioral nudges, messaging, and other techniques would actually lead to a reduction in plate waste. The way that we did this was install our measurement systems. Working with LSE's team, we designed 3 different communication approaches. We also then surveyed employees of the casino to try and understand and add a bit more qualitative data, and then we worked with LSE and Melco to analyze that feedback. And what you can see in the table below is a communication plan over a period of weeks. You've got a control casino, a control restaurant or canteen, where no feedback was initially given, and then simple feedback was given, and then we had different approaches that we tested at the same time with the other 2 casinos. You can see some of the design here. So these are posters that go into the dining area. We tested different messaging around water consumption, interestingly. We talked about the kind of climate impact of food waste. We talked about it as a precious resource. Interestingly, the biggest driver of behavior change was anthropomorphized food images. So as you can see on the right there, the happy and sad food designs, they were found to drive the most change when introduced into the dining area. And I think you find this in other areas. For example, with some speeding cameras, you'll see a happy and a sad face depending on the speed that the car is going. And again, that's proven to deliver better outcomes as you inject some emotion into the behavioral nudge. Overall, we were able to evidence in the test employee canteen that food waste was reduced by over 1/3. As I mentioned, it's the kind of happy and sad food that really drove behavior change, which is interesting. Other kind of motivations and feedback that came back from this group was that kind of messaging around, the culture of cherishing food and the company as a group was found to be kind of positive. Positioning food as a waste of resources like water in this group was found to be less of a driver. I'd be very interested, given the conversation today, to rerun some of these experiments in the UAE and the surrounding region, where water conservation is a much more emotional and relevant issue, perhaps, than it is in Macau. And so where we kind of leave this experiment is with some interesting insights, but recognizing that the response is likely to differ by culture. But overall, we found that that we could impact the levels of waste from the individual by using these behavioral nudges. And so this led to us developing the product that I've outlined. So Vision PW is our plate waste solution. The way that it works is that it's a touchless solution, so it's very quick to record the data. There's a digital scale that records the weight. The camera records an image, and then we amass that data and put it into the back end of Winnow's analytics platform. We can then report on the amount of waste over time. We do compositional audits, and then our users can apply those insights to engineer menus, adjust portion sizes, and introduce signage like I've just outlined. We can also place these systems in the back of house as well as the front of house, and we're starting to design a kind of two-way interface so that when users throw food away, we can actually ask them if there was anything that they didn't like on the plate or anything else that the kitchen could do to reduce the food that was wasted. That gives us a kind of a baseline and a kind of platform to build on. Hilton then approached us last year in the run-up to Ramadan and said, we want to really look at delivering Ramadan in the most sustainable way. Seta already mentioned that food waste goes up during the holy month of Ramadan. By the way, it also goes up in other religious festivals like Christmas, for example. You'd expect the same thing to happen in other parts of the world. Hilton wanted to look at all the different components of delivering sustainable gastronomy, and food waste was really one of the areas that they really wanted to make sure that they had granular measurement of, and then using some of those insights to try and nudge guests at iftars and suhoors to make more sustainable decisions. And the results that we're able to evidence were we were surprised by these. So a couple of data points for you. Over 3 hotels, one in Dubai, one in Qatar, and one in Saudi Arabia in Riyadh, we baselined how much food was actually being wasted per person. We found on average that almost 400 grams of food was wasted per person. To put that into context, the average meal weighs about 400 grams. So at iftars and suhoors, in the hotels that we measured in, for every meal that somebody was taking, almost an equivalent meal was being wasted. And so the task then became, how do we start to work together with the culinary teams at Hilton, with the teams at UNEP, delivering their Recipes of Change campaign, and with our technology at Winnow? How do we combine those things to have a material impact? So we were able to pinpoint exactly where food waste was happening across the restaurants. We placed signage at those different stations. We identified some food items like bread that would contributing, a large proportion of the waste during the service at an iftar or a suhoor. And we were then able to kind of ask the chefs, well, what could we do about that? And so in the Waldorf Astoria Lusail, which was the Qatari test site, the chef said, right, well, why don't we leave the Arabian flatbreads on the self-serve counters, but why don't we serve bread tableside, direct from the back of house? So the rolls, ciabattas, etc., we'll keep them warm in the warmer, and then we'll brief the servers to then deliver those items directly to guests. So we overnight saw the waste of that item, reduced by over 90%. We were able to then deliver a better guest experience by delivering fresh hot bread to guests, and everybody won. And so having data, but then syncing that with the culinary teams was one other way that we delivered a big reduction. And so week 1 of Ramadan of pre-intervention versus week 4 after, we were able to evidence per person over a 60% reduction in plate waste per person. We've then started to build our technology to support policymakers. Around about the same time, we announced signed an MOU with NEMA in the UAE, the food waste unit overseen by the Emirates Foundation. We developed an API, data connection with NEMA's data lake. So some of the audience were asking about data points and how policymakers can ensure that data is, kind of measured in the most accurate way. Well, NEMA is in a world first is taking data directly from hotels at the transaction level. So then their data teams, their IT teams can actually run their own analysis in exactly the same way that Winnow would. We're really interested to kind of explore that with other policymakers and NGOs. In the run-up to COP28, Hilton and NEMA asked us to deliver a project to kind of deliver a similar type of results, but looking at the breakfast buffets. So almost all hotels serve breakfast. In the UAE, Hilton identified, I think it was 13 hotels serving about 1.8 million people breakfast every year. We used the same type of approach that I've outlined for Green Ramadan. We applied forensic measurement. We worked with the culinary teams. We introduced behavioral science-led nudges. And again, we were able to reduce pre and post-consumer per person food waste by over 60% in just 4 months. So a massive achievement from the team there. And again, this is something that Hilton are looking at to scale up across the region in 2024. Overall, just understanding the composition of your plate waste, and you can do that using a tool like Winnow, which is helpful because it gives you really granular data, but you can also perform audits manually. It's really important to help identify kind of cost reduction opportunities. If you're putting things on customers' plates that they don't like, obviously that's not great for customer experience, but it's also a massive waste of money at the same time. Applying these insights to both kind of menu design and operational processes. So that bread example that I shared is an example of an operational process that had a data point connected to it, helping to give more accurate costings and then helping to understand just what is it, what is the composition, what could you be doing with your plate waste? Can you prevent it? Or are they things like bones and shells that obviously you can't prevent? Looking ahead, Ramadan, obviously, 2024 is very nearly upon us. We'll be scaling this with Hilton, so there'll be lots more that we're looking to share in the coming weeks and months. We're working on sustainable conferences and events, which is something that we'd love to connect with operators and interested parties across the region, and we're interested to scale this approach with NEMA with other policymakers as well. So that is it from me. Just thank you very much for the time. Happy to answer any questions that people may have. Thank you.
Thank you so much, David. And yes, please use the chat function if you've got any questions. We've got a few minutes left before we wrap up today's session. It was so insightful, David, in terms of understanding the scale of food that's wasted within kitchens to the consumer, but the real power of insight allows you to pinpoint where those hotspots are, target your approach, tailor and adapt that approach to different types of audience, cultures, etc., but also give that an enhanced experience for all. It's really powerful. I was just thinking, you mentioned about kind of like the next step, sustainable conferences and the interventions. I guess what is needed to enable this practice just to become the norm? It's not, it's just business as usual rather than sustainable. Yeah.
Well, I think I've been with Winnow for almost 10 years now. Kind of looking in bins for almost a decade is obviously going to have an impact on you. But the thing that I've observed in our sector is previously, so 10, even 5 years ago, you had to try and educate people about the fact there was a problem and an opportunity. The conversations we're having now is operators really understand that food waste is a thing that all kitchens are going to have, and that there are solutions out there that help them make a meaningful change. And so a couple of things in terms of how we drive this forward. We need to continue to have forums like these where we apply the data in different ways and we look for collaborative measures to be able to do that. And then I think we need to be having conversations with citizens, consumers, guests, and really making sure that they're part of the conversation as well.
Fantastic. And
Thank you.
And keeping employees engaged on the topic, then is there that correlation between the data and the insights that is gained that keeps that momentum going? Because you've got turnover of staff, etc. You've got a churn of customers coming through to the hotels, restaurants, etc. Yeah.
So what we find is in any kitchen, you've typically got a couple of people in there who are really passionate either about sustainability, or they feel a kind of visceral reaction when they see the food being thrown away, or for any other kind of reason that this is something that they really want to work on. And obviously we try and cultivate those people into champions and give them leadership roles within the project. I mean, one other thing is there needs to be a connection between leadership, operations, and the shop floor. And I think where we've seen real impact, so we helped IKEA, for example, halve their food waste worldwide. That definitely was an approach where everyone in the chain needed to be bought into the project. But then the good news is it's eminently measurable. And so it's one of those types of projects where you can really evidence impact very quickly. And that's obviously what motivates individuals, be they in the kitchen or customers or guests in the front of house.
Indeed. And then there's just one final comment that comes in the chat. It's interesting to note that foods with shorter expiration dates have led to a reduction in food waste. And this might be because shorter expiration dates encourage quicker consumption or mindful purchasing, or ensuring that food is used efficiently.
I guess we focus on the kind of commercial side. I know there's a lot of work that's gone on to try and simplify, use by, best by type of messaging on packaging. I think that's something that needs to be scaled. The massive evidence that there's confusion among consumers around expiration dates, and we need to make that as simple for customers or consumers as possible.
Okay, great. Conscious of time, we're just up to it. Many thanks, David. I've just got some closing remarks, if that's okay. Hopefully you can all see my screen. Okay, I'm just moving things around. Oh, sorry, just gone there. So just a few closing remarks. Please participate and engage with the resources which we've discussed today. We will share the links, and the publications will be coming shortly on both the WRAP and Thriving Solutions website. Thank you so much to the speakers, to the attendees for your contributions, and to FCDO for the financial support to enable the resources to be developed. This webinar today will be available on YouTube after the event, and we will email the link. There is also a feedback survey for today. It will be going in the link in the chat, but also in email. So many thanks. Let's see, happy food and not sad food, and the consideration of water within the mix as well. Many thanks.
Thank you very much.
Thanks all.